I have a tendency to review games that you don't see anyone else taking the time to review. These are mainly obscure games, and I've got to say, Mr. Nutz for the Super NES definitely fits my criteria of an obscure game. I can honestly say that I've never heard about this game back in the day, and nobody I knew heard about it either. I was keeping my expectations steady, even with Ocean being involved with the game, and anything with Ocean behind the wheels is never a fun ride, and there are many examples of their lackluster work. So going into this game for the first time, I had absolutely no idea what it would be like, nor did I know if it'd be good or bad. It's like being an adventurer, you never know what you'll come across. You can find rare treasures, or one of mankind's worst mistakes. Or something you would find with a simple metal detector in your backyard. So let's not waste any more time keeping the suspense. In the game, you play as this rather strange looking squirrel who I assume is Mr. Nutz, otherwise why would this game be titled that? Judging from his appearance, I think this game was targeted at Boy Scouts, but this game has little to nothing to do with the Cubs. It's a side-scrolling adventure game traveling through each level in an effort to stop Mr. Blizzard, a Yeti hell-bent on freezing the planet. Oh, so it's kind of like the day after tomorrow, only with a squirrel and a Yeti. Okay. So you go through each level, usually containing 2 segments or so and a boss fight afterwards, taking out creatures that are in many ways very bizarre looking. Seriously, when you see these enemies for the first time, you will have a weary look on your face and wonder if you're high on ecstasy or something. These are the kind of designs that will make you have ideas of what the hell was going on during development. At first glance, the graphics are actually impressive for the Super NES, especially for an Ocean game. With these guys, I was expecting a mess beyond proportions, but with the visuals like this, I'm at a loss for words. It's one of those things you can't exactly describe unless you have a point of view that somehow makes sense, or if you happen to have some psychedelic drugs, maybe then you can actually understand. But with me being as straight as a sewing needle, almost, I say the graphics are attractive and the animation is fantastic, but at the same time they can give you a creepy vibe. However, just because the graphics can make you feel trippy with its Disney-style visuals, that doesn't mean the gameplay won't literally trip you. With something so unusually happy and bright, you'd expect the game to be a smooth walk with flowers and roses and daisies all fluttered and puffy, but let me tell you, it's menacing. For starters, you enter the levels from a perspective very similar to that of Super Ghouls and Ghost. From your first input, you'd think it'd be easy to take out these enemies, but you only have 3 ways to do that. The first way is throwing acorns at them. Get it? Because he's Mr. Nutz? Yeah, no. You can only throw the acorns you collected forward, so it pretty much limits your advantage, not to mention that they travel halfway across the screen. Also, whenever you jump and throw these acorns, you'll most likely miss the enemies by millimeters. The second way is using your tail to swipe these creatures out, but it requires you to be at close range while ducking, so with the tail swipe being limited, it's pretty useless. The third and most effective way is jumping on the enemies, similar to Mario and Sonic. Unfortunately, this is one of those games where your jumps have to be dead center, otherwise anywhere else you land, you will take damage. The hit detection is very anal and the controls don't ease much of the tension. For the most part, the controls are fine. The A and B buttons allow you to jump, which is odd. Why would you have 2 buttons perform the same function? Were there not enough abilities to give Mr. Nutz? The same thing applies to the X and Y buttons, as they allow you to throw acorns, unless you're crouching, in which case you'll be able to swipe your tail. I'll get into what the L and R buttons do later. The movement on the D-pad feels kind of awkward, which is no surprise since this has Ocean involved. Anyone that has played Ocean games will be familiar with their control methods. What will really bring your head to a boil is the jumping, as it is terrifying. Like the enemies, you have to be dead on where you land, otherwise you can miss so easily. You think you'll be able to make the jumps at times, but you just pass right through. This game contains obstacles that require you to jump farther than normally without anything in the middle to support you. It's even worse when you get to icy levels, as the grounds are very slippery that most of the times you'll slide off without having any room for compensation, and believe me, there's not enough for any. It's either you commit to the jump and risk falling, or get left in the dust. You're only allowed 5 hit points, and you do have unlimited continues when you lose all of your lives. However, that does not mean this game is about trial and error. Trial and error implies when you mess up at something, you try it again and get better and improve on what you did wrong. In Mr. Nutz, no matter how many times you die, you'll feel like you're getting nowhere as the obstacles in these levels don't give you a break, and neither do the enemies, and they can become nerve-wracking to kill. Enemies such as these apples or grapes walking without a care can stress you out, as sometimes they can appear onto the screen without any warning, and it's not easy to avoid contact at the last second. Other types like these crawlers with spikes shielding them will have to be taken out with your tail or use acorns as opposed to jumping on them. I also find it weird that when you hit them once, they're revealed to wear diapers. Are they babies or something? I'm sure it has nothing to do with animal cruelty, but then again, you're playing as an animal yourself, so it really doesn't matter much. You also have mantis plants that can't be killed and will spring out to block your way. Then you have enemies that can prove to be helpful with increasing your jumps. In fact, pretty much every enemy gives you more hang time every time you successfully nail them with your feet, making some items in the air more accessible. All of these enemies aren't much to get worried about, but the flying enemies on the other hand will be the bane of your existence. They have no recognizable pattern and will pursue you anywhere you go, no matter how far you are from them, and most of them are not easy to kill, especially with the jumping. Some of them will just fly back and forth, and it's not as simple as jumping on them, as they can appear without any warning, which can at times mess up your jumps, especially when you're on a level that requires you to climb up, and if you fall from running into an enemy, you'll have to climb it all over again. When you encounter these enemies, you'll try to run away, but when there's a crowd pursuing you, you'll be forced to stop and fight off as many as you can. And keep in mind, you're only allowed 5 hit points before you die, and when you do, you'll have to start all the way back at the beginning of the level, despite how far you were, and the temporary invincibility can only get you so far. If you were paying attention, you might have noticed in some parts of this review, my health kept getting restored, even though I didn't obtain a health icon. You're probably wondering if it's a glitch of some sort, and to clarify that, it's no glitch at all. When you start up the game, you'll notice that the title screen has only one mode to play. However, there's another mode that can be unlocked with a code. On the title screen with the second controller, press start, select L and R together, then hit the following: up 3 times, down 3 times, left, right, left, right. If done successfully, the word start will be replaced with cheater, which is the cheater mode. Upon starting this mode, you'll find it's the same as the regular game, but with a couple of special tricks, and this is where the L and R buttons come in. If you're low on health and it doesn't seem like you'll make it to a health icon, simply press L to restore your hit points, and if you're on a level that's too much to bear, especially when it comes to the icy levels, simply press R to skip to the next level. For those that want to get through this game fair, you're better off sticking with the normal mode, but be warned, this game is not straightforward since you'll also have a few puzzles here and there to solve in order to carry on. It's not the hardest platformer on the Super NES, but it barely offers you any mercy. Sure, there's power-ups once in a while, but even those can be short-lived, and the bosses can be ridiculous at times given how precise your landing must be to inflict damage, and seeing how excruciating some of them can get, you'll most likely spam the L button to keep yourself from death's door. Oh, by the way, these coins are nothing more than to rack up on points and add to the scoreboard, which would have been nice if the Mr. Nutz cartridges came with backup batteries, but since they didn't, when you reset the game, your score is gone. Aside from trying to beat a game, isn't it also important to achieve the highest score possible? You do that to show off to friends how badass you are, but if the game you played doesn't save your score, you won't have much to boast about and you'll be looked at as pathetic for trying to attract attention. So to put it bluntly, the scoreboard here is saying the joke's on you, buddy. The music is very campy. It just sounds too calm, even for a children's game, making the feel of the atmosphere unbalanced and weird when put together with the unusual art style of the game. The sound effects are alright, but they do sound pretty strange at times. Even though it's in some ways a ripoff of Super Mario Bros., Mr. Nutz is a pretty decent 2D platformer. There are some frustrating times in the game, but it's nowhere near terrible. Although the game doesn't have anything new or unique to offer, it's pretty nice for a little of your time, but the gameplay can get monotonous and the levels are tedious. Still, it's not every day where you play an average ocean game. They were known for making mediocre licensed games, but Mr. Nutz is an original title and is fun for a while until you get bored of the atmosphere and quit. So my advice, give this one a shot and see if you like it, since there's not many reviews of this game out there. But then again, I don't think the cartridges of the game were widely distributed in the US. Thanks for watching. I'm Riley Sky. See you later.